Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to BWTM Sports. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. We appreciate it. And of course, thank you to those who have subscribed to BWTM Sports. Now, this video is more of a request. This one is from Professor Clifford Benton from America. He's often on the Twitter page and he's very supportive. So, Professor Benton, this is for you. If you notice, I don't often do videos of all-time greats or top fives, and maybe I should in the future. Maybe I should, but we should. But for this one, I've done it a little differently. I've called it the BWTM Sports Top 5 British Boxers of a Visual Time. You know, I've seen a lot of people do videos on all-time great fighters, and that's cool. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You've got the time to sit down and research and watch fighters, and you know, and those are people are very good at that. And I have watched their videos. I think it's great. I think some people will be able to pick them apart and say, well, you know what? I think this fight is greater than the other, and fair enough. But for me, this is for a visual time. What I mean by visual time is a time when I was watching boxing. So, as much as I would love to talk about Muhammad Ali and all the great fights Ali did, you can look him up on YouTube, and I've seen some of the great fights played over and over again. Ali wasn't really in my time. He wasn't in my era. That doesn't mean I'm ignorant to it. Ali's they're called the greatest of all time. Sugar Ray Robinson is my favorite fighter of all time. I really do deserve to look at Sugar Ray Robinson. Maybe not from a boxing perspective, and probably say people say, well, why you wouldn't look at it from a boxing perspective? Well, the reason why I've been inspired by Sugar Ray Robinson, I will reveal in another video soon. But moving on, that's why I'm doing a top 5 British boxers of a visual time, a time where I sat down and watched them, or my parents paid for me to be able to see them fight via pay-per-view events, or some fighters that I was attracted to, fighters that I thought, yeah, I really like that guy. I really want to see how that guy's career progresses. So this is my top 5 British boxers of a visual time. Now, I'm not saying they're all-time greats. I'm not saying they're not all-time greats. But I'm just saying, in a personal opinion, which is it's of a visual time. I think the first person that comes to my mind when we talk about British fighters is Prince Naseem Hamed. This is not in any particular order, but Prince Naseem Hamed is in my top 5. Why? He was a showman. He remains to me the greatest showman in British boxing, without a shadow of a doubt. His entrances were amazing. His from you know, his entrances in the UK to America, he was a showman inside the ring. The way he took out top level fighters with punching power was extraordinary. The rumored stories of him knocking out heavyweights and sparring, and Prince Naseem Hamed, you know, he'd tell it like it is, and he'd predict when he'd knock you out. And the thing about Naseem, he was never nasty about it. Prince Naseem was really, he had a cheeky smile on his face, and you know, his entrance to the American TV was really a baptism of fire for him when he went to America, and he was on all the billboards in America to fight Kevin Kelly, and it was the most extraordinary fight. Hamed went into the ring and, you know, flipped into the ring. He had great big entrance and all stuff. Something I've never seen a British fighter have. Came into the ring dancing to Red Rat, that girl Shelly Ann, and he was dancing to the ring. It was absolutely spine tingling the way Hamed bowled to the ring, you know, full of confidence and spunk. And he got in the ring within the first 30 seconds. He was on the canvas, but he got up. He got up. Although he got hurt again, he dropped Kelly in the next round, and it was a back and forth fight. Hamed ended up winning by knocking Kevin Kelly out, who at that point had never been knocked out. So he knocked out Kevin Kelly. He went on to unify I think he fought Boom Boom Johnson as well, Manuel Medina, Yeah, the way he beat the champions, Steve Robinson, was quite demoralizing for Steve Robinson. Of course, people always remember the Barrera fight and the way he lost the Barrera fight, and then when he came back, he didn't bounce back. So that was one of the big, you know, black marks against Prince Naseem Hamed. But as a showman, what a showman, what a fighter. I'm not sure if the UK is ever going to have a fighter as dazzling as the Prince again. Brilliant in terms of to sit down and watch. Absolutely entertaining from beginning to end. So Prince Naseem, in terms of showman, the greatest showman on the UK borders. Prince, people talk about Eubank being a showman, but Prince Naseem went to America and did it. He did it, and he did it against the very best. So he didn't get to fight Erik Morales. He did fight Antonio Barrera. He got beat by Antonio Barrera, but I have to say, by the time the Prince fought Antonio Barrera, he had become, from what the stories have been told, the Prince had really taken the height to his head. The other thing is, this is something a lot of people wouldn't know. Uncle James Ali Bashir, who's been a regular on the channel, spoke at length as to how, when Emmanuel Stewart took over the training of Prince Naseem Hamed, he wanted Prince Naseem Hamed to hold his feet more, which basically means not dance around the ring as much, hold his feet in the center ring and land big, hurtful punches. Bashir was like, no, he shouldn't do that. How did you meet him? He was a mover and he had phenomenal power. It was because he was moving, and then he'd hit you from unorthodox angles, and with the speed and punch power, that's how he was able to knock people over. People didn't see the shots coming. And Bashir said it was that sort of unpredictability that made Hamed special. And he blames Emmanuel Stewart for adjusting and tinkering with the style of Hamed, which basically, by the time Barrera got him, he was as flat-footed as possible and just wanted to just bang people out of there. And of course, Barrera went on the counter punching tactics and was able to stop Hamed from launching in big shots, countered him and made Hamed look pretty standard. And thanks to Barrera's great boxing ability and boxing brain, it really was a launch pad for Barrera as well. So yeah, it was a great win for Barrera. It sadly was really the writing on the wall for Hamed's career. Well, we can even go back before then. Yorgi Sanchez fight was another savage fight. And who remembers back the Daniel Alacia fight? I remember listening to that fight, and Hamed went down, but he got up and he took Alacia out in the next round. So Prince Naseem Hamed, very entertaining, very, very entertaining, and greatest showman for me. And again, this is visually, for visual time. I was around. I was old enough to watch Hamed fight, and so Prince Naseem Hamed for me was one of my top 5. Next person on the list, Lennox Lewis. Watched Lennox Lewis for years. Watched him when he turned pro. Midweek Sports Special when he announced he's turning pro with Frank Maloney. I remember him and Nick Owen in the studios. And I remember him saying, I'm here to fight for Britain, and I'm gonna be, I'm on a mission to become the heavyweight champion of the world. And I remember my dad sitting next to me and saying to me, he ain't going to become no champion. And my dad and me would go back and forth. And then my dad was the one who really got me into boxing, watching boxing. And he said, Lennox Lewis, he ain't going to win no heavyweight championship of the world. He's a fraud. That's what my dad would always say. Lewis was a fraud. And I don't know, my dad had a real chip on his shoulder about Lennox Lewis, but he didn't like Bruno either. But he thought Lewis was a big fraud. So, well, I got the back and forth. Well, my dad, it features in most of these fighters that I'm going to mention. So he wasn't impressed with Lennox Lewis. He said, look at this guy, he's a fraud. He's from Canelo. I said, but he's born in the UK. Listen, my dad said, where did he learn his trade? I said, well, he boxed at Canada, the Olympics. He said, well, exactly. He's a fraud. He ain't no Brit. He's a Canadian. So me and my dad would go back and forth about it all the time. I said, my dad said, if he was any Brit, why didn't he box in the GB? Why didn't he box in the ABAs? Well, I could never answer my dad them questions, but it is what it is. Lennox Lewis, started his career off in the UK. I think he was trained with John Davenport. Lennox Lewis beat one of my favorite fighters. At the time, I did like Lennox Lewis, but I didn't like him when he beat Gary Mason, because Gary Mason at the time was the guy I liked before I liked Lennox Lewis. But I did follow Lennox Lewis, and I watched his fights, and I liked what Lennox was doing. I liked him more so because of what my dad was saying, but I didn't like him more than Gary Mason. But of course, Lennox Lewis and Gary Mason fought. I put money on Gary Mason to beat Lennox Lewis. And guess what? My dad put my dad bet me a tenner that Gary Mason would get beat by Lennox Lewis. He said Lennox Lewis was the better boxer. And of course, my dad was right and I was wrong. And well, that went on for a while. So Lennox Lewis won. He fought Razor Ruddock. My dad thought that Razor Ruddock was going to get knocked out by Razor Ruddock would knock out Lewis. Lewis destroyed Ruddock. And then afterwards, my dad said as soon as Lewis knocked out Ruddock, he went, well, you know, Ruddock got the beating. He got beaten up by Tyson twice. That's why Lennox was able to knock him out. So, and I remember him saying, what was he doing? What was he doing? Sticking his head, looking at Lennox's belly button. He deserved to get knocked out. Some of that, again, wasn't a believer of Lennox Lewis. Lewis then had the situation with Riddick Bowe throwing the WBC belt in the bin. And then my dad said, you see, right? Hey, there you go. I told you that Lennox Lewis was for. Look at him. Garbage can champion. He's got the WBC belt. So my dad never recognized Lennox Lewis as WBC champion of the world. And of course, Lennox had made some defenses. He beat Tony Tucker. My dad said he scraped past Tucker, and he said Tucker was on cocaine anyway. Then I think Lennox's second defense of the heavyweight championship of the world was, I believe, Frank Bruno. And my dad was saying, oh, Bruno will probably beat Lennox Lewis. And well, guess what? Bruno was outboxing Lennox. He was beating him with the jab. My dad was laughing his head off. He said, hey, see, look old Frankie boy's come back. And Bruno's going to beat up old Lennox tonight. He's going to beat the Canadian. You ain't seen him again. And I was backing Lennox Lewis. I had the SPX hat, the SPX shades. Man, it was I had the Lennox Lewis high top, the haircut, level vibes, all that stuff. Big up hard crew, as Lennox would say back in the day. But anyway, so I'm watching Bruno unloading Lennox Lewis on the corner. And my dad said, yes, go on, go Lennox, go Bruno, go on Bruno, go on Bruno. Of course, Lennox pulls out the left hook. And well, that's the end of Frank. Lennox finishes Frank off. And my dad said afterwards, oh, well, look at Lennox. At the end of the day, Lennox, he told you, guy's a fraud. He closed his eyes and threw a left hook. Well, but that had some element of truth there. He did close his eyes, but I think that was more of instinctively of Lennox. And of course, he's finished the job off. Lennox is a good finisher. Dad says, Lennox is still a fraud. Well, next fight was against Phil Jackson. And my dad said, look at this performance. This guy ain't no world champion. And of course, George Foreman was watching the fight. And George Foreman said, Lennox Lewis, you know, he's got to sort his style out. He needs to, you know, focus on what he's really meant to be doing. And of course, for Oliver McCall. And I remember listening to that fight on radio. And I remember hearing Lennox Lewis versus Oliver McCall. We're into the second round here. Oh, Lennox is down. It's over. Lennox has been knocked out. I heard that and my heart sank. It absolutely sank. And I was like, I was going to cry. Oh, I did start crying. My dad rang me and laughed. I said, I tell you, that man's a fraud. That Lennox Lewis is a fraud. Yeah, that hurt. Lennox being a fraud. I remember my dad saying, laughing, he was saying, yeah, he's British and he's bad. That's what Pepe Correa said when Lennox knocked out Razor Ruddock. My dad says, yeah, he's British and he's bad. He's real bad. He's terrible. How can you get knocked out by Oliver McCall? The guy was he's a journeyman. Forget Oliver McCall. So Lennox actually brings Emmanuel Stewart in. And then we have the rebirth of Lennox Lewis under Emmanuel Stewart. Of course, we know what happens. He goes on, becomes heavyweight champion of the world again. This time he beats Oliver McCall again. McCall crying around the ring. My dad was there criticizing Lennox. Oh, he couldn't knock out a guy that was crying and, you know, was walking around the ring and all the rest of it. Lennox went on, of course, beat Holyfield, beat Tyson, fought Klitschko. But before that, he got knocked out by Hasim Rahman. So Lennox ain't no champion. Yeah, how can you call yourself a great champion getting knocked out by a guy like Hasim Rahman? He's been knocked out now by two guys who will never be in a Hall of Famers. He got knocked out by two guys who nobody would care about. So I told you that Lennox Lewis was a fraud. So that's what my dad said. Anyway, Lennox Lewis, for whatever my dad had to say, I said, Dad, Lennox Lewis became undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Dad, Frank Bruno became WBC heavyweight champion of the world. Regardless of what you may say, these guys went on to become world champions. And they did. And Lennox became undisputed champion. And I guess I won that debate with my dad. So, moving on. Talked about Lennox Lewis. So, for me, Lennox Lewis was the undisputed. He was the undisputed champion, so that's for me there. Then we've got, by the way, I noticed people are mentioning names of guys that I know they probably weren't born to watch C fight. This is for a visual time, meaning a time where I'm 41 now, so, or be 42 next year. So this is people that I actually saw live on television, and it was in color, not in black and white. So the next person that comes up, third, so, and this is in no particular order. So I've said Lennox Lewis, no, Naseem Hamed, greatest British entertainer. Lennox Lewis, undisputed. Next man up is the man from Ilford, Nigel Benn, and I had the pleasure of coaching his niece in Kent while working for the Frank Bruno Boxing Academy, boxing for schools. Now, Nigel Benn. I love Nigel Benn. The only problem I had about Nigel Benn is I went to try and get my hair cut the same day he got his hair done. I think AJ Sports in Ilford, of Manor Park. So if you're from the areas, if you're from the ends, you know what I'm talking about. Nigel Benn, watch him a midweek sports special. I remember watching, the first time I really watched Ben was a guy against, I think, Mbayu. But the commentator, I think it was Steve Holsworth, was said, but you know, they just call him Bob. And that was a fight I saw Ben knocking him over. And I saw the Anthony Logan fight where Ben was completely out on his feet. He was getting beaten from pillar to post. He was out on his feet. He turned around and one right hand and he took Anthony Logan out. Ben, the Dark Destroyer. And of course, his theme tune, Dangerous, I am dangerous. I tried to play the tune in my dad in the house. My dad wasn't a Nigel Benn fan. He thought Ben was arrogant. He had a lot of views about Nigel Benn, and he didn't like Ben at all. He thought Ben was a big head, and Ben had too much of a big mouth. I can't wait to see until that Nigel Benn gets beat. I can't wait it. And I said, my dad, I was thinking this in Tottenham at the time, and my dad said to me, my dad was talking to his mate. He says, "Are you backing for this Watson Ben fight?" He went, "I'm backing Watson, boy, because Watson can box. Watson can box. Watson's a far better boxer than Ben. Ben's been just fighting knockover jobs." I'm like, well, I don't care. Ben's knocking Watson out. So we had the big fight. Ben spent 4 hours to get his hair done. I know, because I didn't get my hair done that day. Thank you, Nigel. And if I ever get to interview you, we're going to have a conversation about that. But anyway, thank you, Nigel. So Ben comes out at Finsbury Park. It was, again, this was a visual. And Ben comes out to fight Michael Watson, and Ben comes out swinging for first round, proper bombing away. I'm like, go on, Nigel, go on, Nigel. I didn't know much about boxing. I just knew that Ben could punch. And Watson just tucking up on the ropes, tucking up, round after round, tucking up. And then my dad says, you see, watch tonight. Nigel's going to get knocked out by Watson. And then when Nigel got hit by a jab, I remember the words by Harry Carpenter. Was it Harry Carpenter? Yeah, no. Reg Guttridge. Reg Guttridge. Harry Carpenter was BBC. ITV, The Big Fight Live. He goes, oh, he's gone. So the big hitter has been hit. It's over. Ben's been stopped. And my dad started laughing at me. Ah, Nigel Benn got knocked out by a jab. I told you the guy's a fraud. Ben's got a big mouth. As soon as somebody hit him back, Ben was finished. Forget Ben. You always like backing losers, don't you, Ingram? So, of course, Nigel left the UK. He went to America, and he went through. He went through, and he built himself back up. And I remember Nigel Benn fighting Doug DeWitt. And I remember again, Reg Guttridge, Jim Watt, and he was fighting Doug DeWitt in Atlantic City. And I remember Ben, a lot of Ben. I thought it was when the WBO just first come out, I think, and the British Boxing Board of Control weren't really recognizing WBO as a world title fight, something like that. And I remember Ben either ripping up his license or ripping something up. I don't know, but I remember it. And Ben got knocked down. Oh dear, Ben got knocked down. And it was Reg Guttridge. And whenever Ben went down, he'd go, "Oh!" And anytime he went down, I was like, "Oh no, oh shit, Ben's down. Come on, Nigel, get up. Nigel, get up, get up." And he knocked out Doug DeWitt and became the WBO champion. Oh, I told you Dad Ben would do it. He says, "No, don't worry. You know what I like? I like that Eubank. I like he can talk, he can pose, and he can fight." I said, "Eubank ain't proved himself. You watch when Ben hits him on the chin." And my dad says, "You know what? That Eubank is class. He's class act." Yeah, whatever, Dad. Well, guess what? Ben and Eubank fought. I said, I bet my dad £10 on Ben against Eubank. Oh my God. I cried more than Nigel Benn that night. I cried. And when Ben stopped, when Eubank stopped Ben, I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried. I couldn't stop crying. And I had to pay my dad the £10 that he gave me for pocket money. And I had cried and I cried and I cried and I cried. Ben came back and he went and won the WBC title in Italy. And then, of course, Ben fought Jerry McLennan. Fights against Steve Collins, but by then Ben was finished. Ben was finished by the time he fought Steve Collins. I'm sorry, he was finished by the time he fought Steve Collins. The rematch Ben had against Eubank, I'm for sure he beat Eubank in that rematch. And Don King made it a draw because both guys were champions at the time, so they both retained their belts. Ben beat Eubank in that rematch. I swear he beat Eubank in that rematch, but for whatever boxing political reasons, he didn't get the decision, Ben. But Ben retired. He got beat by Sugar Boy Malinga, who also Robin Reed got beat by another super middleweight that I liked. So Nigel Benn, the Road Warrior, the Jerry McLennan fight. Ben got knocked out of the ring in the first 30 seconds. He was knocked out of the ring, and a lot of people said he was out of the ring for too long. Fight shouldn't have continued, and the fight shouldn't stop there and then. Had even stopped then, Jerry McLennan would be in the position he's in today. Well, thing I loved about Ben, he fought anybody and everybody. You could believe he fought anybody and everybody. He was always chasing the Roy Jones fight. He wanted to fight the Sugar Ray Leonard fight, but they never came about. But I'd love to have seen Ben fight Roy Jones for what it was worth. And I would like to see what happened if Ben had tagged Roy on the chin at that time at super middleweight. Great fighter. Love Nigel Benn. Again, I'm not saying he's all-time great, but top 5 British fighters of a visual time, of a time where I was watching boxing. Nigel Benn. So Lennox, undisputed. Hamed, greatest showman. Ben, international champion, where he went abroad and won the title on 2 occasions, and also fought some of the best around. So Nigel Benn for me is the top 5. Exciting. Showed what it's like to be a champion, to lose your belt, to come back. Shout out to Nigel Benn. So that's 3. 2 left. Ricky Hatton. Who's in your top 5? Well, again, visually, I saw Ricky Hatton. And that's what I liked with what's his name, Frank Warren. And when everybody talks about Frank Warren to me, I think Ricky Hatton. I think of what he did with Ricky Hatton. He had that WBU belt that people have no time for. But you know what? That was what Ricky Hatton had. He fought I think he fought Eamon McGee, and he fought John Thaxton. He built himself up nicely. Then he fought Costa Zoo. Great timing, great work by Frank again. Hatton went abroad and won, and I think he won the world title abroad as well. He fought was it Collazo he fought? Actually, I thought he was lucky to be Collazo, to be honest. He had that fight against what was the guy that Mayweather fought and he dropped the body shot. I couldn't remember again. But anyway, I liked Ricky Hatton. I liked him. He was fan friendly. So he was fan friendly, and what a body shot he could land. He had a tremendous left hook to body. He was a great body puncher. So I like Hatton for entertainment purposes, to get in there, get stuck in. A fan-friendly fighter. I like Ricky. Of course, fights against Mayweather and Pacquiao at the highest level. You know, Pacquiao. But these are two pound-for-pound greats. Two guys, arguably, two guys who are going to be Hall of Fame fighters. He got beat by, so he didn't get beat by no bums. And even when he made his ill-fated comeback, Hatton came back and fought at a very high level to come back. And I didn't think Hatton should have done that. I thought Hatton should have had a warm-up fight and then fought that guy. So again, Ricky Hatton, loved Ricky Hatton. Exciting fighter, fan-friendly, and what a body puncher. So Ricky Hatton, 4. And the last one, 5. Joe Calzaghe. Number 5, Joe Calzaghe. Again, in no particular order, Joe Calzaghe unbeaten 46 or 47-0. I like Joe Calzaghe from the start. Loved him from the start of boxing career. Him winning WBO title against Chris Eubank, dropping Eubank twice. It was very impressive. I think Eubank had come from super middleweight. He was meant to fight Mark Prince at light heavyweight, if I'm correct, and he moved down to super middleweight. And Joe dropped him twice. Joe dropped him in the first 30 seconds, and then he dropped him again. I remember Joe was meant to fight. I think Joe was meant to fight Steve Collins, and Steve Collins didn't want to fight. Steve Collins went missing. So I don't know what happened with the whole story about Collins. And one day I'm going to ask him. But Joe Calzaghe beats Eubank. He has some defenses. But the next fight up for me, I remember him fighting Brewster. But the next fight for me, 2 fights in particular, when I think Joe Calzaghe, before the Kessler fight that everyone talks about, and the Lacey fight, there's a fight against not Charles Brewer. It was the other guy. Oh, God, and I keep forgetting. Byron Mitchell. What a fight! Oh, my God. Second round, I think it was. And Calzaghe's fighting, and Mitchell clips him with a left hook, and Calzaghe goes down. Then he gets up, Calzaghe, and then he lets go a flurry of punches as Mitchell's trying to knock him out. He drops Mitchell. Oh, what a fight. And Calzaghe goes on and stops Mitchell, I think, inside 2 rounds. And Mitchell was world rated at the time. I said, you know what? Calzaghe's something special. My dad wouldn't say much about Calzaghe, apart from he slapped a lot. But Calzaghe then went on and fought another guy called, I can't remember the guy he fought, but he was an upcoming fight. He was unbeaten. I think it may have been Arabic or from the Middle East. I remember him fighting that guy as well. And they didn't like one another. But that was a good fight as well. Good fight. Calzaghe was coming out throwing punches left, right, and centre. Good fight. Good fight. There's another fight Calzaghe got dropped in as well, but against a guy that nobody had heard of. But Calzaghe won the fight. Then he had the fight against was it Jeff Lacey fought next? I don't think he fought Kessler or Lacey. I think he fought Lacey. And everyone's saying, oh, Calzaghe's going to get knocked out. Calzaghe's going to get done. And Calzaghe put on a masterclass against Jeff Lacey, whom a lot of British media said Lacey was the next Mike Tyson. He was next Joe Frazier. It was everything rolled into one. And Calzaghe played with him, really did beat the living daylights out of Jeff Lacey. Tremendous fight that Joe Calzaghe put on. A boxing masterclass by Joe Calzaghe. Then he fought Mika Kessler for the unification bout. I think that was what made him undisputed. I'm sure it was. And he fought Mika Kessler. Oh, my God. Good fight. Kessler clipped him, clipped him with good shots. Again, Calzaghe showed adaptability on the fly. Then Calzaghe went to America, fought Hopkins. Again, got dropped, got up, and beat Hopkins. People argue that he didn't beat Hopkins. Okay, I'm not here to dispute that. Then he fought Roy Jones Jr. That was just a fight for the ages. Wasn't a great fight. Roy was at I'd say the end of his career, but Roy's still fighting up to today almost. So, you know, Roy's career's gone on way too long, way too long. But yeah, credit to Kawasaki fought Roy Jones, and that was the end of Kawasaki. But in terms of hand speed, masterclass performances, the adapter, Kawasaki fired the adapter. Now, notable mentions. Why didn't you put Chris Eubank on there? Well, the reason why I didn't put Chris Eubank on there is because most of his fights, I know he had this world tour, but they were like the who's who. When they went after who's who, it was the who's that of the super middleweight division. Whereas Ben went and fought in America, and he fought the best. I mean, he fought Jeremy McLennan. You would have never seen Chris Eubank fight Jeremy McLennan. He fought Michael Watson. That was Chris Eubank, and he got beat by Steve Collins. So, he made those 20 defenses. But when you really look at the guys that he made in those 20 defenses, then you look at the sort of guys Ben was fighting. Ben went to America and he performed in America, won the title in America, won the title on the road. I think both times Eubank won the title was in the UK. He won on that world tour, but it was more of I think it was a money spinner for Eubank rather than a really wanted to prove he was the best in the world. I believe Ben would have gone and fought Tony. He would have gone and fought Michael Nunn. He would have fought Roy Jones Jr. Well, why wouldn't he have done? He fought McLennan. So, again, notable mention, Mr. Eubank Jr., Mr. Eubank Sr. to one side. I know he likes to tell everyone he had a legendary career. He had 20 defensive. That was successful defenses, great, but maybe I think it's 20 defenses or 19 defenses. Next notable mention, Carl Froch. Froch would have been in my top 5, but I have to edge out one of those 5. Carl Froch, I think, is a very good fighter, but he got beat by Mirko Kessler, who Joe Kawasaki basically beat. So if I was going to put Carl Froch in there, I'd have to take Joe Kawasaki out of there. So no. Love Froch. I think the Super 8, Super 6, you've got to give him a mention. If I had a top 10, Froch would definitely be number 6, probably, or maybe 6, or he'd be in my top 10. But no, he's not in my top 5. But Froch has been in some great fights. His fight against Jean Pascal to win the title was great. His fight against Bouteille, another great fight. His fight against Jermaine Taylor in America. He should be in there as well, Froch. If there was a top 6, Froch would be in there. Defending his title against Jermaine Taylor, was losing that fight, came back and stopped Taylor within last round. Fantastic performance by Carl Froch. He had to fight against Andre Ward and gave Andre Ward one of the toughest fights of his career, although he got beat. And Carl Froch was never recognized as number 1 in his division, even when Andre Ward was out for as long as he was. Carl Froch was always recognized as number 2. So I like Carl. I think he's a good fighter, very good fighter. Exceptional, no, very good fighter, but he's not in my top 5. Others such as Barry McGuigan. Well, I watched a tail end of McGuigan's career, so I can't really talk about McGuigan. The fight I saw of McGuigan's when he fought Jim McDonnell. So that's when I saw McGuigan. So that's where I was watching boxing. So I can't really talk about McGuigan. Lloyd Hannigan, well, again, tail end of his career. I wasn't conscious. I wasn't aware. I was aware of Lloyd Hannigan, but again, when I watched Lloyd Hannigan is when he got beat by Mark Breland and kept going down against Mark Breland on the BBC. He beat Don Curry in a spectacular performance to beat the then pound for one. I think he's pound for pound number 1 or one of the pound for pound great fighters, which is Don Curry at the time. John Conte, again, I didn't see John Conte box. I just hear about John Conte. He may well have been a great fighter, but I didn't see Conte, so I can't talk about John Conte. Other guys I've mentioned that I liked watching, but I'm not in my top 5. I liked Scott Harrison, love watching him fight. Robin Reed, love watching Robin Reed fight. His win when he won the title against the South African, loved that fight. Loved when other fight I liked about Eubank is when he fought Henry Wharton, and I liked when Robin Reed fought Henry Wharton as well. I remember I only recently spoke to Robin Reed, and I love that guy, Robin Reed, but not my top 5. Visually, top 10 probably, but Henry Wharton is another guy I liked. But you know, Bruno, yes, like Bruno, but not in my top 5. Bruno, from a fan perspective, yes, I grew up watching Bruno, but not in my top 5 visually. Who else can I talk about? There's probably loads of other Carl Thompson. More recently, David Hay. Again, Gary Mason's in my top 10 because I liked Mason, and I loved Gary Mason as well. Wharton. Who else can I talk about? Who else can I talk about? Hey, let me see who else we've got here. Yeah, Michael Watson has to be given a mention. Michael Watson does have to be given a mention, but he took an awful beating by what's the gentleman's name? Mike McCallum. Oh, the body snatcher, a real body snatcher, and a real class act. I will never forgive the referee in that that unfortunate for Michael Watson for pulling him out on the 12th round. I will never forgive the referee for that. I implore people to go back and watch that 12th round of Michael Watson against Chris Eubank Sr. I implore people. Watson got dropped in the 11th round and he was gone. I don't care what anybody said. He was gone. And I'm visualizing it back in my mind now. And I remember the referee pulling Watson's hand, like, to come out for the 12th round. The referee says, yeah, the rule is protect yourself at all times. I remember it now, and my heart is beating now, and I want to break into tears again. And I'm watching the referee pull Watson out, and Watson's gone. He's gone. He's gone. Literally, the referee has to pull him out of his corner, and all he can do is put his hands up to protect himself, and Eubank just keeps putting punches on him. Those were punches he didn't have to take. That fight should have been stopped in the 12th. That he should not have come out for the 12th round. As soon as the referee saw he stood up and he had nothing there, he should have been stopped. The other thing I heard about Michael Watson, I don't know how true this was, that he took blood the night, he took blood out of his system and then put blood back into his system, and that's why Watson was able to fight at the frantic pace he fought Eubank for the 12 rounds. Again, that fight is a fight that I will never forgive that referee for. Referee's job is to protect fighters at all times. There was no way Watson was going to come out in that 12th round and win that fight. No, absolutely no way. And I will never, ever, 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 ever forgive the referee for that. Sorry. So I can't talk about Buchanan and Benny Lynch because I wasn't around when Buchanan and Benny Lynch fought. I can't talk about those guys. I'm sorry. Khan, but Hay and Khan are more recent and they're not in my top 5. I'm sorry. I've talked about 5 great fighters there, in my opinion, and I don't think Hay comes into that greatness. I don't think Khan comes into that greatness. Sorry, I just don't. Good fighters, but just not in that class. I mean, who am I going to remove at that top 5? I think Hatton could have beaten Khan. Lennox would have destroyed Hay, I think. Who else we got? So I can't really, I can't. Yeah, good points there. The elusive, extravagant banger and the flat-footed one over-reliant on power. Yes, well, you can blame one man, Emanuel Stewart, for doing that. Yeah, Khan. Hey, yeah, he's definitely top 15 or top 10, top 10, top 15. Yeah, but I can't put Hay or Khan in there. Not when I've excluded Carl Froch. Sorry, because Carl Froch tops both of those guys. Don't blame Hamed. Blame Emanuel Stewart. Blame Emanuel Stewart. And I'm going to bring James Ellis-Bashir on the channel to talk about the whole situation between Hamed, Emanuel Stewart, and Bashir. And they would argue back and forth about it. Miss Cortez, nice to see that you're live and well. I hope you're well. So I'll bring it back on the channel. I'll do it as well because people want to hear, obviously, things like that. So yeah, that's definitely. But I think I've brought it on. I think I've had it on the channel before in the video, so I will definitely do it again. I need to talk to Bashir, Uncle Bashir, anyway. So yeah, did I talk about Lomachenko? Not in the BWTM Sports top 5 British boxers of a visual time. No, I wouldn't have talked about Lomachenko, but on the channel, I would have spoke about it in the appropriate video, Mr. Cortez. Let's see. Let's see what people are saying here. I'm gonna reel this up to the top to hear what people got to say. LOL. Mr. Skeptical says Lennox, Bruno, Hamid, Nigel Benn, Carl Froch. Well, Bruno's not in my list, as you know, and Carl Froch not on my list. Calzaghe and Hatton. I missed the start, Ingram. What's the context of the top 5 modern era or in any era, any generation? Again, just to repeat, it's the top 5 British fighters of a visual time, or in particular, my visual time, and not is a visual time. So I can't talk about Ken Buchanan or I can't even talk about Henry Cooper, right? If you want to put him in there. So these are guys that I watched. McCall was a pretty decent heavyweight, to be honest. Yes, he was a decent heavyweight, but my dad, as I said, he had plenty to say. Joe Calzaghe is the greatest British boxer ever. Records don't lie. Greatest boxer ever. Well, that's another discussion. Watched him ice Butler in the comebacks. Is on the ropes. Yes, I'm going for Jimmy Wild. Well, were you live or were you not even live? Were you? Would you call that a visual time? Did you watch Jimmy Wild? Hatton's got to be there. Hatton is in my top 5. I'm being visual too. Oh, good. Well, fair enough then. Fine. Lennox wouldn't have wouldn't fight Tyson until he was 10 years past his best. Still fought him. Loads of pictures of him. Fair play to you. Calzaghe has to be number one of all time. Okay. Casuals all-time 5 would be AJ, Yard, Dubois, Eubank, Bellew. Great. Watson was a cracking fighter. He was, but not in my top 5. I think there's a spelling error in the title, Ingram. Mate, probably there was. I got mixed up with it, but I get it now. A visual time, i.e. what he watched or has seen live. The good of days, IT Van Boxing Dean in the UK. Mr. Kep, how come no Ricky Hatton? Yes, Ricky Hatton was mentioned. Mr. Benton, Ricky Hatton is in the top 5, and shout out to Professor Benton, who's in the room with us, who inspired me to do this top 5. Well, in fact, asked me to do top 5. Eubank was in a position to fight McLennan, but opted to move up in weight and fight Watson again. Agreed. Nigel Benn is in my top 5. None of them went up against Nunn or Tony. But they went up against Ben went up against Jeremy McLennan, who I think would have had a good chance. He would definitely have beaten Tony. Don't know if he'd have beaten Nunn, but he would have beaten Nunn. I don't know if he'd have beaten Tony, but I believe there is a videotape of Jeremy McLennan and James Toney sparring. Check it out. Great stuff. Do you think the Kostya win was a much of a curse as a blessing? He seemed to become more physical. I don't know. I can't really answer that. I just know that at the time, if I go back and look at Hatton's career, maybe so. I did see he seemed to fight a lot more with his face, but then having said that, Hatton did move up in class. After that, yeah, we talked that's about Hatton there. Omar Shaker, that's it. Omar Shaker versus Joe Calzaghe. Great fight. Loved it. Lacey was a total beating. Ingram is doing a masterful job. Thank you very much. He fought Peter Manfreda Jr. Yeah, that was fine. Would he emulate what he'd done if Roy Jones was at his peak? I don't know. The argument about Joe Calzaghe's unbeaten record, had he fought Roy Jones at his peak, that would have been interesting. That'd have been interesting. But the fight I would love to have seen more than Roy Jones Jr. is because I think Roy could only fight in one style. The fight I would love to have seen is Andre Ward against Joe Calzaghe. Why? Because both guys are technicians, because both guys fought from super middleweight to light heavyweight, and because both guys are adaptable. They can make changes on the fly, meaning if something's not working, they can change it mid-fight. I think that would have been a great fight. Joe Calzaghe, Andre Ward, what a fight. I would be more in a rush to watch Joe Calzaghe but Andre Ward than I would to watch Lomachenko and Rigondeaux. Even if if I had a choice of watching 2 fights, that's the fight I would have seen. Tyson Fury will not be in my top 5 visual. Sorry, he will not be in my top 5 visual. I can't. He wouldn't be in my top 5 visual. Sorry. If Lomachenko has a UK passport, he will claim him as a Brit. Hello. Just tuned in. Yep, read the title. It's okay. I've seen enough sports personalities of the air to be sickened to death with Cooper. Modern boxers who may unify or have big fights would make top 5. Could be Tyson Fury or Joshua. Well, from what I don't know if it's true or not. I heard Tyson didn't turn up to his hearing today. Don't know if that's true. And his legal team didn't turn up to the hearing. But having said that, the weather conditions could be a problem as well. I think the next thing I want to do is I'm going to do commentary on a couple of fights that I think were great fights that I enjoyed watching, and I'm going to start commentating on those fights. So I'm going to do live audio commentaries for big fights. There's 3 fights in particular I want to watch. 4 fights I'm going to do. One fight I do is Evander Holyfield against Bert Cooper. Also, I want to do Oscar De La Hoya against Chavez. There's a couple of Oscar De La Hoya fights I want to do commentating on. Yeah, Trinidad versus Oscar versus Corte. So I was a big Oscar De La Hoya fan. So Joshua versus Molina commentary. I think I did that already. Oh dear me. So yeah, I'm gonna do some commentary and some fights. Is Tyson Fury the most disappointing British boxer? No, it'd be Harold Graham for me. Harold Graham be the most disappointing British boxer because between Harold Graham and Kirkland Lang, because I think both guys should be world champion, because they had all the talent in the world, but they didn't do it. Harold Graham and Kirkland Lang. Bruno had less talent than both of those guys, and he became world champion. Check that out. What do you mean by top 5 visually? The people only in your lifetime. The people I visually could see visually. Think Joshua has a great chance, head screwed on, and thinking in the long term about legacy. Was shame he was beating Brewer. That was the night Lennox Lewis fought Shannon Briggs, and that's another fight I definitely will be doing audio commentary on as well. He's the main man at the heavyweight right now. Yeah. So I think that's about it for now. That is my top 5 British boxers of a visual time. I hope that you've enjoyed it, Mr. Clifford Benton. Professor Clifford Benton. I appreciate you very much. And thank you so much for supporting me over on the Twitter. And thank you all so much. I think I'll do another one of these. In fact, now that I'm in the mood, I think I'm going to do a commentary for a fight tonight. I'm going to pick a fight. I'm going to do live commentary of an old fight. And I'm just going to commentate on it because, hey, I just love commentating. I do. And I'm going to commentate on fights I know that are good fights. So, what do people think I'll be doing commentary on old fights? Fabulous. Anybody going to request a fight that you'd like me to commentate on? And please don't ask me for any MTK global fights. So request me quickly before I go off. Old fights, yeah, old fights I'll be commentating on. Old fights, sure, go for it. Yeah, so old fights I'm going to commentate on. How far back? Well, listen, they ain't going to be in black and white, so forget that. That's for other channels. Hamed Kelly, oh, of course, that's got to be up there. Corrales Castillo, well, that was a great fight. Oh, wow. Hamed Kelly, okay. Barrera Morales won. I'm only 25, but so my visual is top 5. Froch, Hay, Lewis, Hatton, Kawasaki. Okay, sounds good. Right. I'm out of here. I hope you've enjoyed my top 5 British boxers of a visual time. I'm out of here. Once again, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, rate it, comment, leave your comments below, of course. Duran versus Buchanan, a stretch. Yeah, it's a bit of a stretch. How about Kirkland Lang versus Duran? How about that one? Take care.